Hello, in this video I will show you how to create a histogram with Google Sheets. A histogram is typically used to illustrate the distribution of a quantitative variable. A quantitative variable is a variable that has numerical values, and most often we use histograms to illustrate the distribution of continuous quantitative variables, and these are variables that have decimal points or can have an infinite number of decimal points between integers. In this file, I have a list of schools in the state of Georgia and the amount of money that each one of these schools has spent per student in the year 2021. So the data has a lot of lines, about 2,200 schools are in this data set. So just by browsing through the data, it's a little bit hard to tell what the distribution of these dollar amounts really looks like. So um, I'm going to use a histogram to examine the distribution of these values. And this time I'm not going to select any of these columns, and I'm just going to click insert and then chart. And notice that because I only have one quantitative variable in my data set, the Google Sheets AI guessed that this is probably the variable that I want to use for my chart and created a line chart for me. It's true that this is the variable that I want to use for my chart. However, the line chart is not necessarily the most appropriate type of chart for this purpose because I see the name of all of the schools here on the x-axis, but because there's so many schools, it's hard to read. I can tell that there are some schools with extreme values. For instance, there is one school here that spends a lot more money than all of the other schools. I do see some negative values here, which can be either data entry errors, or it can be a way of coding the data, or it may be real. Maybe there's depth or something like that. So this is also a way to examine the data and to check and see if all the variables or all the values in this variable are within the normal range. So this is real data. I'm not going to change anything. This is what the data looks like. But again, the line chart is not necessarily the most appropriate for this purpose. So I'm going to go to the chart editor here, click on the drop down menu and select a histogram. Now a histogram condenses all this information, and it shows intervals within which values are located. And we can see that here the tallest bar is located here, and this shows where most schools are located within which values. And sometimes if we hover over this bar, we can actually see the interval, like we see here. For instance, 626 schools are spending between these values. For this interval, we have 856 schools. For this interval, we have 207 schools, and so on. We can see that the data are a little bit skewed. We have more bars on the right side, and there are some schools here at the higher end.